Back in the workshop today. I feel like it's been honestly a really long time since I've been back in the space creating something, and the plan for today is to start working on a wedding gift for one of my friends. We don't see each other as much as we used to, living in completely different spots now, but she's still near and dear to my heart, and I'm so excited for her and her husband, who are getting married a month from now. And she actually talked to me asking if there was any chance that she could commission me to do a chessboard for her soon-to-be husband. She was hoping to give it to him as a pre-wedding gift, which I think is really lovely. And I said, absolutely yes, this is my wedding gift to you. I didn't have a lot of time to make this chessboard happen, and I'd have to get moving if I wanted to finish it in time. So I got to sketching. Okay, it's the next day. So just real quick, I wanted to show you all what the chessboard I made a little over a year ago looks like. This is a maple and walnut, pretty sizable chessboard. I used a piece of curly maple, which might be harder to see with the checkered squares, but you can see in a couple spots the maple has like a kind of a shimmer to it. But yeah, anyways, this is the chessboard. So with this chessboard, I will be doing something pretty similar, but there'll be a couple differences. I am going to use walnut as the dark part of the chessboard, but I actually picked up this nice piece of red oak that I think will look really nice as the lighter part of the chessboard. And then if you look closely, you can actually see that this piece of red oak has some curliness to it right there. When they're planing the piece of wood, you can get kind of scuff marks, but this truly looks like it's gonna have like a curly pattern to it, which I really, really like. I think it looks so beautiful and really pops when you put a finish on it, so had to snag this piece for the chessboard. The red oak and walnut look so lovely when I placed them side by side, and I was feeling confident that together they would make a rather stunning chessboard. Working in a small one-car garage shop means a little more setup is required before you can really get going, but I'm used to moving things around. First order of business was cutting down the walnut and red oak boards to shorter pieces that still had enough buffer for the mini cuts I would make, and then cut those boards into thinner strips using my table saw. Each of the squares on the final chessboard would measure 2 inches by 2 inches, so I cut these strips 2 inches wide. Next step was gluing up the strips into one solid piece, alternating the walnut and red oak pieces. I didn't show it here, but I put down some wax paper before I glued everything up, so I wouldn't accidentally cement the piece to my work table. Then I placed a bunch of heavy items on it to help it dry flat and let it sit overnight. The next day, I went ahead and cut the frame pieces that would sit around the board.
Brewster! Come here, baby.
There we go. He's so cute. That weekend, I went up to visit my parents and meet their new pup, Brewster, who is rather cute. And I decided to bring the board with me to work on. After cutting 2-inch strips perpendicular to the glued up walnut and oak strips, I alternated their orientation so that the board now had that checkered pattern. I glued everything onto a 1/4 inch thick piece of plywood so that the checkered section would have a slight rise out of the frame and to help make the whole checkered board more structurally sound. Once the whole piece was given enough time to dry, I brought out the belt sander Kyle had recently repaired, and starting with 80 grit followed with 100 grit, evened out the surface of the board and the frame pieces. Next, I carefully squared off all sides of the board. After I made all 45-degree cuts on the walnut frame pieces with my miter saw, constantly checking to make sure all 4 pieces were going to fit snug around the board, I marked the ends so I knew which pieces went where, as mixing them up can create a less perfect fit, and I didn't want to play the guessing game later. Then I got to sanding. I sanded for a while, working up from 100 grit on my orbital sander to 220. A few barely perceptible gaps between a couple checkers were taken care of with a little bit of wood putty.
Calling down power, it's all you try. Right now, how you drop the gun. Like the last.
Once all the sanding, cleaning, gluing, and drying was done, it was time for my favorite part of the whole woodworking process, applying the finish. I always love watching the way a good finish brings to life a piece of wood and makes the grain and colors really pop. I love the smell of this stuff. I think this chessboard came out looking rather beautiful, but there is a bit of a plot twist to this story. After many, many days of working on it, a little bit here and there, the chessboard is finally done. The big plot twist of this whole project was I ended up giving my other board, the first one I made, to my friend for her wedding, and this one is one I am now going to keep as my personal chessboard. I decided to do this because I was cutting it really close, and honestly I was getting a bit nervous about having it ready in time for her big day. She had told me that if it wasn't going to work out to not stress about it, but I could just tell that she really wanted to have it for her wedding day to give to her soon-to-be husband and as a gift. And so I wanted to make that happen and just not risk cutting it too close. So that is why I opted to just refinish and clean up the older board, and I shipped that to her and it arrived in time, and she was able to give it to her husband for their wedding day, which was really special. And she sent me some really nice messages along with some other friends that sent me some nice notes that it was really well received. So I'm so happy I ended up doing that. I think it was the right call. The other reason I decided to go that route is because once I received the pieces that I had ordered for her that were more the classic style chess pieces, they clearly went with the maple better than the red oak. They were a little too light for the red oak. And also this board that I was working on right now had some imperfections. Some of the checkers aren't perfectly aligned, and it's something you don't notice at first glance. At least I asked a couple friends and they didn't notice it until I pointed it out. But once you notice it, you know, it's hard to not look at. And so I didn't want her to have this imperfect board, and I would just much rather keep the slightly imperfect board for myself than give that to her for her wedding day. So that's why I went that way. Definitely a little twist ending, but I think it ended the best way it could have. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.